Hi everyone, I'm Andy and this is the AI Breakdown. Welcome to your weekly news edition where I'll cover what happened in AI last week and why it matters. So, plenty to get through this week. Elon Musk's SpaceX buying the AI coding company Cursor for $60 billion. Salesforce buying a customer service agent for $3.5 billion. ChatGPT slipping under half the market for the first time. The man who helped invent the technology behind every chatbot walking from Google to OpenAI. Anthropic's best models still switched off by a government order. America's grid regulator clearing the way for AI data centers. And a new attack that turns your coding assistant against you. Let's get into it. We'll start with the biggest check of the week. SpaceX is buying Cursor, the AI coding company, for $60 billion. All of it in SpaceX stock. The deal landed on the 16th, just a few days after SpaceX went public, in the biggest stock market float on record. Cursor, if you've not come across it, makes a tool that writes and edits software alongside developers. It's used inside 2/3 of the Fortune 500, and it was about to raise money at a $50 billion valuation. So SpaceX paid a premium to take it off the table. A couple of months back, before the IPO, SpaceX set this up. It took an option, either buy Cursor for $60 billion in stock or walk away and pay a $10 billion break fee. Last week it pulled the trigger, and the share price since then is a story in itself. On the day of the deal, SpaceX shares hit an all-time high, around $225. For a moment, the company was worth close to $3 trillion, bigger than Amazon or Microsoft. Paying $60 billion in stock that's flying looks almost free. Then it turned. Over the next 3 trading days, the shares fell about 23%. By yesterday, they were down around $155, below where they'd floated, and roughly $600 billion of value had gone. So the all-stock price that looked cheap on the day looked a lot heavier by the end of the week. Why does Musk want it? SpaceX merged with his AI company xAI earlier this year, and that AI arm has been struggling. A string of controversies, a restructuring, and a long way behind OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google. Cursor is the catch-up. SpaceX told its IPO investors it sees a $26 trillion market in AI. That's roughly the size of the entire US economy. Modest goals then. For me, this is the bubble question in a single deal. The technology underneath is real. Cursor's tool earns billions in revenue and people rely on it every day. But $60 billion in your own shares, paid for by a share price that tripled in a week, is the sort of thing you see when there's a lot of money sloshing around looking for a home. It might be a brilliant buy, it might be the top. I'd hold both thoughts at once. What I'd watch isn't the price though. It's whether the tool stays independent or starts pulling towards Musk's wider world. When a coding tool gets owned by a rocket company that also owns a social network and a struggling AI lab, the roadmap can change. If your team leans on Cursor, keep half an eye on where it goes. This episode is sponsored by Notify Technology, a health and safety software partner, helping teams run incident management, audits and inspections, and risk assessments in one place. And with Notify Spark, their AI companion, they're streamlining incident reporting and investigations, saving time, reducing admin load, and helping teams act faster on what matters. Learn more at notifytechnology.com. Right, back to the news. And we're staying with big deals, but a very different kind. Salesforce is buying a company called Fin for $3.5 billion. You might know it by its old name, Intercom. Fin makes an AI agent that handles customer support across live chat, email, WhatsApp, and phone, and it closes out about 76% of support tickets on its own, with no human stepping in. Salesforce is folding that into Agentforce, its own AI agent product, which is already running at over $1 billion a year and growing fast. The Fin deal brings 30,000 business customers along with it. So what's going on here? The AI that answers your customers is getting hoovered up into the big platforms. A year ago, you'd have shopped around a dozen startups for a support bot. Now, the company that already holds your customer data is buying the best of them and bundling them in. There's real value in this. I've said before that enterprise AI pays off when it's done well, in the right scenario, and customer support is about as right as it gets. The volume's high, the same handful of questions come round again and again, and the answers are usually clear enough to script. A 76% resolution rate is a genuine saving if your tickets look like the ones it was measured on. The thing to weigh is build versus buy. If you're already deep in Salesforce, this makes buying easier and probably cheaper than stitching something together yourself. If you're not, you're now looking at handing more of your customer relationship to one very large company. That's a fine trade for plenty of teams. Just go in with your eyes open about how much you're piling on to a single vendor. Next, a number that surprised me. For the first time, ChatGPT has dropped below half the market. New figures from an analytics firm called Sensor Tower put ChatGPT at about 46% of AI assistant use, down from over half at the start of the year. Google's Gemini is up to nearly 28%. Anthropic's Claude is at about 10%. Now, ChatGPT is still miles out in front on raw size. Over 1 billion people use it every month. Gemini's at 660 million, Claude 245. So this is the gap closing, with ChatGPT still on top. But a couple of things stand out. Claude is small on users and big where it counts. 13% of its users pay for it, the best conversion rate in the field. People are putting it to work and finding it worth the money. And switching is becoming normal. Your team probably has a default AI tool, and 6 months ago, it was almost certainly ChatGPT. These numbers say the default isn't fixed. Price, capability, and trust are all shifting, and people will switch when one of them moves. So don't wire your whole operation so tightly to one assistant that you can't move if a better or cheaper one comes along. Now, a move that matters more than it might first sound. A man called Noam Shazeer has left Google to join OpenAI. If that name means nothing to you, stay with me. Back in 2017, Shazeer was one of the authors of a research paper called Attention is All You Need. That paper introduced the design that sits underneath every major AI model today. ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, all of them trace back to it. Google paid nearly $3 billion back in 2024 to license his startup's technology and bring him and his team back in-house. He's lasted less than 2 years, and now he's off to OpenAI to lead their work on model architecture. Sam Altman said he'd wanted to hire him since the very beginning of OpenAI. And then it happened again. Over the weekend, John Jumper, one of the most senior scientists at Google's DeepMind, announced he's leaving for Anthropic after 9 years. Jumper is a serious figure. He shared a Nobel Prize in 2024 for AlphaFold, the AI tool that mapped the structure of more than 200 million proteins and changed how medicine and biology get done. So that's 2 of the biggest names in AI walking out of Google in the space of a week, off to its 2 main rivals. And this time the market noticed. On Monday, Alphabet shares fell as much as 7%, heading for their worst day in about a year. The scarcest thing in AI right now is talent. There are maybe a few hundred people who really know how to push these models forward, and they're being fought over like footballers. When 2 of them leave at once, hundreds of billions can come off the value of a company the size of Google. That's how concentrated this has become. So if you're betting on one lab to stay ahead, remember how quickly the people who make it good can walk out the door. Right, an update on a story we covered last week. Anthropic's 2 most powerful models, Fable 5 and Mythos 5, are still switched off. They've been dark for 10 days now. A quick recap for anyone who missed it. Earlier this month, the US government issued an export control order. It said Anthropic couldn't give foreign nationals access to these 2 models anywhere in the world, including its own staff who aren't US citizens. Anthropic decided it couldn't reliably filter users by nationality across every cloud platform fast enough, so it pulled the models for everyone, paying customers included. We've since learned more about why. According to reporting from Wired and the Washington Post, it involved SK Telecom, the South Korean carrier, that's also put $100 million into Anthropic and had access to Mythos. The White House flagged it as a security risk over possible Chinese access. Separately, Amazon's researchers raised concerns about flaws in Fable 5. Put those together, and a targeted restriction became a full shutdown. The awkward bit is the timing for customers. The free trial window for Fable 5 ran out this week, so from now on it's paid credits for a model nobody can actually use, although I suspect they will extend this for obvious reasons. Anthropic says its confident access will return in the coming days. It's been saying that for over a week. The lesson here is bigger than Anthropic. A government decided more or less overnight that a piece of software was a national security matter and had it switched off. And security researchers who looked at Fable 5 said it wasn't uniquely dangerous, that other models can already do the same things. So this is as much about geopolitics as it is about safety. For you, the takeaway is simple. If a tool you depend on can be switched off by a government order with no notice, it can't be the only thing holding up a critical process. Have a fallback for anything that really matters. Different corner of AI now, energy. Last Thursday, America's energy regulator, FERC, did something that matters for anyone thinking about where all this AI computing actually runs. In a unanimous vote, it ordered the 6 big grid operators that between them serve about 200 million Americans to rewrite the rules for how large power users connect to the electricity grid. And by large power users, they mostly mean AI data centers. The short version is, get these things plugged in faster. Data centers for AI need enormous amounts of electricity, and right now the queue to connect can run for years. FERC has given the grid operators 60 days to either justify their current rules or change them. There's a sensible bit in here for ordinary people too. The orders specifically tell the operators to stop data centers shifting their costs onto everyone else's electricity bills. That's the real worry with this stuff. If a big tech firm builds a giant facility next to your town, who pays to upgrade the local grid? The regulator's answer is not households. So on one hand, the power demand is real, and a country that wants to lead in AI needs the electricity to run it. On the other, you're reshaping public infrastructure at speed around the needs of a handful of very large companies, and the questions about climate and reliability are far from settled. Here's what I'm watching: your own energy bills and your local grid over the next couple of years, especially if you're near one of these big builds, and whether protect the bill payer survives contact with the lobbying. That's the line that decides whether this turns out to be good policy or just a fast lane for big tech. Now one for anyone whose team writes software. There's a new kind of attack doing the rounds, and it's got a name: agentjacking. Researchers at a firm called Tenet Security worked it out, and it's clever in a nasty way. Here's how it works. Lots of developers now use AI coding agents, tools like Claude Code, Cursor, and OpenAI's Codex, and lots of teams use a service called Sentry to track errors in their software. The attack hides malicious instructions inside a fake error report sent to Sentry. When a developer asks their AI agent to go and fix the outstanding errors, the agent reads that fake report, treats the hidden instructions as a genuine job, and runs them on the developer's own machine with their own access, so there is no password stolen, no system broken into. The researchers found nearly 2,500 organizations exposed, and in testing it worked about 85% of the time. The really awkward part is that Sentry, the company, has said it won't fully fix this, because at the platform level, it's, their words, technically not defensible. So what do? My view is straightforward, and I don't think this is a reason to down tools. The productivity from these coding agents is real and worth having, but you treat everything the agent reads, whether that's error reports, web pages, or outside data, as untrusted. You don't let it run commands off the back of that with nobody watching. Keep a human in the loop for anything the agent wants to execute. Use the tools. Add the guardrails. The mistake would be either banning them in a panic or trusting them blindly. There's a sensible middle, and that's where you want to be. There's a new report out from PwC, their annual AI jobs barometer, and it's worth knowing about because it cuts against a lot of the doom you hear about AI and jobs. PwC looked at over 1 billion job adverts across 6 continents, and they found the companies using AI the most are the ones growing fastest, and they're raising wages and adding headcount as they do it. Productivity at the most AI-exposed firms is running about 40% higher than at the least exposed. The top 5th have seen productivity growth of around 160%. Regular listeners will know my view on AI layoffs. When a company announces it's cutting jobs and points at AI, I usually read it as cover for ordinary cost cutting. This report is the other side of that coin, where AI is actually being used to do more rather than to excuse doing less. It's looking like a job creator. There's a catch, and it's about the kind of jobs. PwC describes a 2-track market: Roles that AI makes more skilled are growing twice as fast with much faster pay rises. And entry-level jobs are changing hard. Junior roles are now far more likely to demand the sort of judgment and leadership you used to pick up over years. The bottom rung of the ladder is getting higher off the ground. So if you run a team, the real work is helping your juniors step up faster, because the jobs left for them are more demanding than they used to be. Right, a quick lightning round before the close. The model race is heating up again. OpenAI is expected to put out its next model, GPT 5.6, any day now, billed as a decent step up. Google's Gemini 3.5 Pro is due before the end of the month, with a huge memory and a deeper reasoning mode. But the one that caught my eye comes from China. A model called GLM 5.2 from a company called Zhipu beat OpenAI's current model on a key coding test, and it costs a fraction of the price. It's open too, so anyone can download it. With Anthropic's top models switched off, a lot of developers outside the US have been reaching for exactly this sort of thing. The cheap, capable, open model is becoming a real force, and it's not all coming out of California. So, pulling the week together. If there's one thread running through all of this, it's dependence. Who owns the tools you use, who can switch them off, and how easily you could move if you had to. A $60 billion coding tool changes hands. A government turns off the best models overnight. The leader in chatbots slips below half as people happily switch. A new attack turns a trusted assistant against its own user. Different stories, same lesson. The AI you're using is powerful, and it's also moving under your feet. You don't need to be paranoid about it. But this week I'd do one small thing. Pick the one AI tool your work most depends on, and ask yourself a simple question. If it vanished tomorrow, switched off, bought out or priced out of reach, what would you do? If you don't have an answer, that's your job for the week. Use the tools, lean into what they can do, and keep enough independence that you're never one announcement away from a problem. That's all for this week's AI Roundup. If you found value in this breakdown, please leave a rating and hit subscribe. See you next week.